Thank you, Dr. Townsend, and thank you for your years of dedicated service in your position as well. All right, well, my dear students, in some ways I feel like I'm graduating with you. After having had 70 of you in the St. Lawrence Commons for the history class in freshman year, we certainly will miss you. We will miss Isabel's dresses and style, for sure, Anthony's love of politics, and his love for his senior thesis, Rebecca's cheerful smile, the Belleville boys, the Carlo girls, what great pairs they made while they were here, for Ambrose's intensity, for Mark Cermak's smile and his wry sense of humor, Helena's spirit of service, for Annie's charm and poli-sci's savvy, for Grace's enthusiasm, for Christian's esoteric love of Roman coins. How weird is that? His confirmation name should have been Denarius, probably. For Jonathan as R.A. and the best KK I ever had. For Laurel adding so much beauty each Sunday in the organ at Mass in Christ the King Chapel. For Peter and Lily, what a couple. Not to ignore Danny and Teresa as well. For Alex and Maria Francis for their great spirit of service throughout their time here. For Maggie's classy Irish style and joyfulness. For Maddie, Catherine, Sarah, and Maria, all who thankfully will still be here next year. Sarah will be mothering students in Bellaroma, and Maria here on our campus singing amazingly. Andrew for his leadership and for his half-court four-point shot that I will never forget, and his rebounds, very, very good. Michael Katrib, who was among us as a fashion god. Lizzie for such a joyful smile as receptionist in Chaley, always great to see her there. For John, Dom, Sam, Peter, and Hugh to lead the assault for Crusader Rugby. Great job, gentlemen. For Carla to keep praying for us all. Cecilia to read at Mass and also to lead Shield of Roses. Great job. For Kat to sing so sweetly. For Meg to take center stage as Miss Drama. For Aidan to carry on the work of Dr. Carroll with his love of history. For Monica to show us what can be done with a double major. For Rachel to fiddle so beautifully throughout her time here. For Giovanni, who ran the sacristy and also dressed so conservatively while he was here. Strange. Sam for just being an all-around great guy and a fine lector as well. To Catherine for making the musical Oklahoma come alive every single day on campus. Stephen for his love of theological and philosophic reflection. Tom to just swing away, as he should. Kathleen to be our author in residence. John Paul Vanderwoody, head RA and ultimate scooter dude on campus. And we can say king of hoops as well with over 1,000 points. Anna for distributing books and cards at every holy hour. God bless you for that. Claire's leadership and love for coffee. For Meg as a great student body president. For Julia's artwork. For Will to keep our focus mission moving forward. And TJ, a senior class president, MC extraordinaire, and also for one who's developed a great passion for Darby O'Gill and the little people. Now, we could go on, but we have to go on. So anyway, but God bless you all. You're an incredible class. Few brief reflections. I promise it won't be over 15 minutes, all right? Assuming I can get through everything. All right. In Evelyn Waugh's Brideshead Revisited, there's a character named Charles Ryder. Some of you I know are familiar with the work. Played by Jeremy Irons, who did a great job in the series. But he reflects on what he had been taught concerning Christianity in that novel. And he says something very interesting. He begins, I had no religion. The view implicit in my education was that the basic narrative of Christianity had long been exposed as a myth. And that opinion was now divided as to whether its ethical teaching was of present value, a division which in the main weight went against it. Religion was a hobby that some people professed and others did not. At best, it was slightly ornamental. At worst, it was the province of complexes and inhibitions and of intolerance, hypocrisy, and sheer stupidity attributed to it for centuries. No one had ever suggested to me, he said, that these quaint observances expressed a coherent philosophical system and intransigent historical claims, nor had they done so when I have been much interested, end quote. Writer, lack of interest and confusion. D.H. Lawrence, who I seldom quote, but I should mention I'm going to quote D.H. Lawrence if that's okay. I guess you can go to hell some places for quoting D.H. Lawrence, but I'll... Anyway, he wrote concerning our modern age, "We are bleeding at the roots because we are cut off from the earth, the sun, and the stars. Love has become a grinning mockery because, poor blossoms, we plucked it from its stem on the tree of life and expected it to keep blooming in our civilized vase on the table," end quote. There is definitely a severe crisis of faith in our world. Many of the speakers have already made allusion to that, which has led to an inability on our part to really see the natural created order of things. Is it any wonder that after decades of Soviet oppression, where the Soviets were trying to create a new human being, a human being who would be free from religious superstition, that when John Paul stood in Victory Square in Warsaw in 1979, just on the eve of Pentecost, what a time to be there, and he cried out to a crowd of 270,000 of his countrymen crammed into that square, that the exclusion of Christ from history of man is an act against man, and the history of each person unfolds in Jesus Christ. And then 270,000 people spontaneously interrupted him and chanted for 15 minutes uninterrupted, "We want God. We want God." And the Pope put his text down and allowed that to play out, to the horror of the communist masters who were surrounding the entire proceeding at that time. They remembered their dignity. G.K. Chesterton, who I love so much and I love to quote, also had a thought that tails with this. He said, "At the back of our brains, there is a forgotten blaze or a burst of astonishment at our existence. The object of the artistic and spiritual life is to dig for this submerged sunrise of wonder, so that man sitting in a chair might suddenly understand that he is actually alive and be happy," end quote. Now, our contemporary world seeks all the time to hide this truth, the truth of our nature and the truth of our destiny. The world offers us a conception of freedom which is really an enslavement, a relativism which robs us of objective truth, and a crass pragmatic materialism which would rob us of our very souls. We become, in C.S. Lewis' words, men without chests. Your education here in these past 4 years that went by so quickly have grounded you in the truths of our holy Catholic faith and the truths of natural reason as well. This education, which has been gifted to you, will require of you many things. One of the main things it will require as you go forth will be courage. Courage on your part as you go forth from here. You might remember in the book of Esther, Mordecai sought to stir up courage in the heart of Queen Esther as all of the Jews were ready to be slaughtered in that country, when he said, "And who knows but that you have come to your royal position," that's your royal position, "for such a time as this," end quote. We can recall the great Joan of Arc, who said, "I am not afraid. God is with me. I was born for this." As Aristotle observed, courage is not recklessness, but knowing what's worth fearing and what's worth pursuing. And Joseph Pieper, following Aristotle's insight, tells us, courage is the willingness to sustain a wound for a noble cause. That's courage. During the First World War, with its battle in the trenches, there was a soldier whose name was Jim, whose best friend was a fellow soldier named John. And they're in the trenches together, and John was ordered up out of the trench to assault the enemy in the first wave, the first Allied wave, going against the Germans. And they entered into the face of savage machine gun fire, and John and his entire line that went up were mowed down. And Jim, still back in the trenches in the second line, saw his best friend go down. The slaughter was so bad that the officer in charge of the second line, the sergeant in charge, called off the second wave, said, "We're not going to go." And then Jim said to the sergeant who called off the line, "I've got to help John. I've got to help him." The sergeant responded, "It is a waste. It's a complete waste. He is dead, and you're going to get yourself killed in trying to do that." But despite the sergeant's words, Jim jumped up out of the trench and ran out into the open of no man's land. He found John. He actually picked up his friend, and while hastening back to the trench, a burst of machine gun fire raked his back, and he fell back into the trench, mortally wounded. His sergeant ran to him and said, "Your friend is dead, and now you're dying." And with tears, he told Jim, "You wasted your life, just like I told you. You've wasted your life." And Jim, with tears in his eyes, said, "No, I did not waste my life. When I reached him, John was still alive. He was still alive. And he smiled when I got to him. And then he said to me, 'Jim, I knew you would come for me. I knew you would come for me.'" The world's jaundiced judgments are deceptive. Someone you've come to know quite well during your time here at Christendom said once, "He who loses his life will find it." My charge to you this day as you go forth from us here at Christendom College is have the courage and the vision to waste your life. Yes, you heard me right. Waste your life for the sake of those God will place in your life. Waste your life, for he came that we may have life and have it to the full. If you lose your life for him, and with his grace, if you lose your life and waste it, you will come to know who you are and what God expects you to be. And that, my dear students, is happiness in this life, and that's also happiness in the next life. So my dear students, please know that our hearts and our prayers will be with you as you go forth from us today. And I encourage you once more, waste your life. Praise be Jesus Christ, now and forever. God bless you all.